So first we're going to look at the karate style of throwing the roundhouse kick. My weight's on the back foot and I'm not travelling forwards and through the target with this shot. It's more of a range finding shot. It's not as powerful as throwing the technique more Thai boxing style with the shin and travelling with your weight forward and through the target, but you've got less chance of getting your leg caught and you've got less chance of falling down into a counter technique because I'm at a maximal range. I'm going to open my hips up fully. In order to do this, I can't bring my foot through on an angle. I have to extend my hips fully. I have to pick my knee up to the side to a right angle. As I pivot on my supporting foot, open my hips up fully. At this point, with this type of kick, my supporting foot is pointing at the wall behind me and I'm opening my hips right up. My knee is pointing on line to where my target is. I'm kicking and I'm pulling off. My striking area is the instep rather than the shin. Again, maximal distance. This isn't as powerful, as I said, as throwing it Thai boxing style and driving through, but I do, as I say, maintain maximal range, and it's a much faster kick, harder to stop, harder to counter against. And don't forget, your leg is still a lot heavier than your arm. Even one of these shots, if it connects on the line of the jaw, can cause a knockout. So from here again, my knee comes up to the side, and think of it, rather than throwing through the target when we're throwing the karate kick, more a scissors motion here, boom, or throwing up to the head. And I'm going to snap my knee back, I'm going to pull my heel back towards my backside. From that position, I've got other options. So from here, if he decides to move in, I can check. I can turn to a side kick, I could come low, many things, okay? Or, you know, if he's to rush me and I've got my knee here, I can at least sort of just hop in and check him and get to this kind of position, start working through for clinch or whatever. So one more time, the knee up to the side, a full pivot on this back foot. It's going to do a 180, my toes are going to be pointing directly behind me. I'm looking to open my hips up to the maximum. I've got my weight on the back foot. Kick, extend, snap off, and pull back down. I'll show what speed on the pads in a moment. So the other main way of throwing the roundhouse kick is more like the Thai boxers throw. So this time, instead of coming around at such a sharp angle or opening my hips up fully, I'm not. I'm going to throw my leg on a much tighter angle. This is going to be a lot more powerful though, because this time I'm going to travel forwards and through the target. I'm going to take this front foot forwards and through on a 45-degree angle, as I would if I was throwing my big right hand. As I step through, I'm already on the ball of the foot. I do still pivot from here to an extent, but I'm not interested in opening my hips up fully. I'm at a much tighter range and I'm coming up on a very tight diagonal angle. My leg is like a limp dead weight this time, so instead of being very controlled and precise and thrown like a whip, this time it's just thrown like a limp dead weight until the point of impact where I'm going to tense my muscle, turn my hip over and drop my weight into my supporting foot as the heel comes through. So I'm stepping here, that last moment I'm rounding the inside of my shin into my target. I'm hitting definitely more with the shin bone now, the heavier bone, as opposed to the instep. My target could be the outside of the leg, or I can throw off the inside to the inside of the leg. I can come up on an angle into the floating ribs, or I can throw high and take the leg right through. We'll have a look at that in a moment. But the basics, I'm stepping forwards and through the line of my target again. My front foot steps through on the angle already. I do pivot slightly with the heel, but maybe my foot's only going to turn to 90 degrees instead of the full 180. I'm drawing a line up the outside of my opponent's body, keeping the kick nice and tight. Maybe a 45 degree, maybe slightly less even. I generally tend to throw the kicking arm back behind me in order to bring this hip through, like kicking a football off a spot. But what I must do is keep my chin tucked in behind my shoulder if I'm going to do that. My opposite hand has got to be tight as well, because if I counter this, or if he counters this, if my opponent counters this technique, or if I miss the shot, or if he takes the shot, I'm going to be landing right in distance for him to throw a right hand. So if my chin is unprotected, it's not going to be good for me. So keeping nice and tight, stepping forwards and through, and driving up this way, chin in behind the shoulder as I throw the arm back. Into the ribs, into the leg. If I'm throwing into the thigh, you can't see because we've both got the gi bottoms on, but basically I'm aiming for the bottom of the quadricep muscles, the teardrop shaped muscles. I'm aiming for the bottom of the teardrop, and I want to be cutting in at a 45-degree angle this way. As I said, I'm not throwing control like the karate kick. I've not got my weight on the back foot. It's not a snap and a pull off. It's driving through like I'm kicking a soccer ball off a spot. And I'm just going to imagine I'm just going to cut this guy right in half. Okay. So we're going to look at the roundhouse kick now applied onto the pads. Okay. We're going to start with, we'll start the karate kick, Steve. So if the person's holding the pad for the karate kick, he wants to hold the pad in so they can just see the side of the pad. I'm going to come around at the front of the target. I want to be stood so that my front foot is on line with my partner's front foot and the side of the pad. I'm going to pick my knee up to the side, onto the ball of the foot of the supporting leg. And remember, this foot is going to do a full 180. It's like a scissors motion with my hips. The weight's going to stay on the back leg. I leave my leg nice and relaxed, and I whip it into the target and snap off as much as possible. In order to generate power with this kick, 2 points. Just because it's a range-finding shot and it's a snap kick doesn't mean I'm aiming for just the surface of the target. I'm still aiming for his backbone. I'm still aiming to throw the shot right through him. The second point is I need to be relaxed and I need to pull off sharply because I want as much of this energy transferred as possible. It's not a power shot, I'm not driving my weight through, so I need maximal velocity and a really sharp pull off if I'm going to get any kind of shock or power into this kick. We now move on to the Thai boxing style of kick. This time my opponent is going to hold the pad. We'll throw it to the body to start with, Steve. Okay. He wants to angle the pad down though now at a 45-degree angle, because remember, I'm not coming around now, I'm coming up into my target, drawing a line up the side of the body, and the angle gets narrower until my shin makes the impact. It's the heavier bone now. I am leaving my leg like a limp dead weight until that moment of impact. At the moment of impact, I drop my weight slightly into my supporting foot and I round the hip over just a little bit to round the shin bone into the target. I'm also travelling with this technique. I'm stepping forwards and through. The lead hand, I throw it back behind me, keeping my chin tucked behind the shoulder. You'll notice I don't get the same kind of pop or snap on the pad that I did when I threw the karate kick. It's a completely different type of energy, but I guarantee the person holding the pad is going to feel that transfer through a lot more. I'm just going to now show a couple of variations of the low roundhouse kick. The first one, exactly the same as the body kick, just simply my target is different. Instead of being the floating ribs, I'm now looking for this point here at the bottom of the quadricep muscles. Again, coming up on a 45-degree angle, travelling forwards and through my front foot, and driving through, hitting with the shin. So depending on where I'm stood to my opponent when I throw the kick, it is two different techniques. Just want to make that clear. If I already have a little angle on my opponent, I'm already at my 45 degrees, I will throw the tie kick static, just driving in from here. If, however, I'm firing in and chasing an opponent as he's moving back, for instance, and I need to travel with the technique, my foot's going to move forwards and through as if I was throwing my cross, and I'm going to fire in this way.